What's going on, everybody? We're back. The About the Touts is back for the second time in 24 hours, which is for sure a record. And today it's the exit interview of the Commish, man. As I said via DM, was bummed to have to send it, but excited to talk to you though. How are we doing?
Doing well. Yeah, this wasn't quite the victory tour about the touts I was expecting to have in a few weeks, but happy to talk to you nonetheless.
Yeah, I feel like you've had, and in some ways similar to Nathaniel's, but in other ways, in other ways different. I feel like your journey has been super fun in the show, and I feel like you specifically had like way more of almost like contest game theory that was happening throughout, which I think benefited you like pretty greatly. So, but I guess like I'll push the conversation in that direction. But just talk to me a little bit about your approach from the beginning, and I don't know maybe if that's a correct read, if the game theory was a correct read.
Yeah, I'll say, like, when I first joined this competition, I was more interested in joining a reality show than I was about touting at the end of the day. So, I'm a big Survivor fan. I've always thought I would do really well on Survivor. So I was happy we actually got a whole episode devoted to it.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was kind of my thesis coming in. Like, I wanted to use this platform to develop relationships and get to know a lot of the other competitors. And to me, that was way more fun than doing the challenges, was just talking behind the scenes, trying to plan out, thinking on our end, what's coming next, who's the new
yeah.
guest judge going to be. That was the most fun part for me.
Well, and you kind of reference it there. Was that the impetus as to why you wanted to submit for this? Was it less about like let's try to I mean, obviously you wanted to try to win the thing, but was it less about trying to win it and more about let's see if I can, create like a networking opportunity and see where this takes me from here?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I never really thought I could win this competition. I always thought I had a super high floor. Like, I think I'm pretty good on camera. I'm definitely above average on camera. I would not say that's my greatest strength when it comes to this industry. I'm much better at being creative and coming up with ideas and producing content behind the scenes. So I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. And I also wanted an opportunity to develop reps on camera and kind of show or prove to myself that I could do it. I've
Yeah.
made content just for me and my friends for multiple years. So it was kind of nice getting validation that, I am somewhat good at this at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is something to that too, right? Where you're doing it in a small pond, right? Big fish in a small pond, in the sense that when you're doing the content for a smaller group or a smaller community, and there is that kind of like itch in the back of your head. They're like, "Well, could I do this? Like, could I if we expand? Could I do this?" I remember when I first started doing like some comedy stuff in Boston, and then being like, I want to move to New York to see it. And not to be like, oh, I'll 100% get on Saturday Night Live. That's why I'm doing it. But just to be like, can I hang? Can I hang? So it's cool that that was this experience for you of just being like, yeah, my friends have seen me do this shit, but like, let's see if I can broaden this out a bit. What do you
Yeah.
think? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, for sure. And also, like, moving from more niche, content that you're making and like a lot of inside jokes. And
Hmm.
you know that your friends are gonna like your content, right? But trying to do it to a more universal audience was a new challenge as well.
Yeah, and I think too, like you mentioned the inside jokes, and that is something like I think that skill of being able to create an inside joke for a group that doesn't really know each other. You know what I mean? Like you're almost it's not fabricating because it's a real thing. But like these people don't know each other in the bigger space of like the content that you were doing for this show, but you're still able to kind of create these connective tissue type moments, whether they're inside jokes, poking at fun at somebody else, emo having his shirt off, like whatever it is, you all
Right.
now have that thing. And I think that is like a skill set. So being able to do that with a group of people you already know, but then a group of people that don't know you is pretty impressive.
Yeah, like creating the tout house early on, I think was a good example of that,
Hmm.
right? Like that definitely drove a lot of the traffic and sentiment early in the show. So that was something that how can we kind of get some names or and for me it was like how are we going to develop our characters as we move
Yeah.
on in the show? So I thought that was another important aspect.
I think that is also. I just want to show fold my socks here in the chat was saying watching all the nice and humble touts on these makes me really think I may have been the asshole. So you had mentioned like right the content that you were doing before you had submitted to be a contestant on this show. What like say you continued to move on? What do you think your move would have been say you had like won this, like what would your content have looked like in this, I don't know, in this space with Pete?
Yeah, so I pitched Pete on a couple different things. I think it would be pretty. One thing I've always liked is just home leagues, right? I
Hmm.
think that's the bread and butter of fantasy football. I think it has a larger audience. So I pitched him on a show where, like I make commissioner content, so just interviewing other commissioners when they're going through troubles, like giving them advice, kind of like a call-in radio show. I think would be pretty funny. Like,
Yeah.
oh, my asshole friends did this week. Like, what should I do to respond? Like, I think that could be pretty fun content. And then also trying to find like what's the best home league in America and trying to
Oh,
interview
that's really
different
fun.
commissioners and be like, here's what we do in our league. And then for me, like the value I think I can bring was never like giving player takes or giving high level strategy analysis. I'll leave that to the cups of the world. But
Hmm.
when it comes to like the fun of fantasy football and why we do it at the end of the day, that's more the lane that I kind of see myself in.
I love that. I love that. That I mean, that really is coming from it more almost of a producer side of things too, where you're like, what kind of lane can we create to do that type of thing? And I like the finding like the coolest league in America too, because I think we mostly just hear about the worst last place finish things. Like that's all, those are the only specific things I learned about other leagues. It's like, oh, you had to be at Waffle House for 32 hours. And you know what? That was fun one time. I don't know if I've been impressed by a losing thing since, except the one where somebody just went trick or treating
Dude, the Halloween one was so good.
that
So
is,
good.
yes,
10 out of 10.
that was
Yeah.
the first time where I was like, "Thank you for letting me know what this is." Because normally I'm like, "Oh, okay, you have to golf naked or something." Like I don't know. I don't. That's not. It doesn't move the needle or the penis, I guess, in that scenario for me. But the trick or treating one was very, very good. But yeah, so I like that that aspect of it. I know they mentioned after, and we'll talk about this episode specifically, but as you were eliminated in this most recent episode, and they were talking about your time on the show. How did that feel for them to talk about you in the way that they did, about like doing some stuff behind the scenes and just kind of, I don't know, I felt like they were eulogizing your experience on the show, because I have a take on it, but I'm curious to hear how you received it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as going out, I thought that was the best kind of note I could have gone out on from a production standpoint. Yeah, I've been doing a bit the past week. Like I have to stay objective. I'm a member of the production team now, but yeah, I mean, I would definitely be open to working with Pete, whether it's on the rest of this show or working in the future in some ways. Yeah, I thought, when I look back on my experience on the show, I brought a lot of really great moments, I think. And for me, I
Yeah.
was always trying to approach the challenges from a different direction than everyone else, which got me into trouble at certain points. But I think when you look at everything I did on the whole, it was unique, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I thought was my only winning strategy was I can't beat these guys at fantasy football analysis. I can't beat them on the mic. They have more reps than me. They've been doing best ball stuff for years. Like, how can I approach this and try to win from, again, to your, well, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about game theory, but from a game theory perspective, I had to be differentiator. So
Yeah.
that was kind of all encompassing there.
Yeah, and I mean, I from a content perspective too, like it's smart to recognize, what you're good at and maybe what your weaknesses are. Not that you can't improve upon the stuff that you might not be great at, but maybe this isn't the environment to improve upon it, right? Where you're just like, I'm trying to win the contest, man. So let's see what can I do to separate myself in a unique way that you're now almost judging me differently than everybody else because I'm doing something completely different. And I thought you approached that in a lot of the challenges in that way where I thought you stood out in that way. And like that could be good and that could be bad, right? Because you are being judged in different ways at times. But I thought you did a good job of almost like creating that lane for yourself.
Yeah, there was like 3 straight challenges where Pete was like, you were the hardest to judge. We didn't know what to do with your submission. And to me, that's where I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to work sometimes, but I'm going to throw shots out there and hope that sometimes it's really going to pay off and we're going to hit on the one. Didn't work with the Goofy video, but I still stand by that decision.
Yeah.
Didn't really work in Survivor Week, but I stand by like our packaging on that a little bit. But I'm interested to hear, you said you had some thoughts.
I just always think it's funny when and I knew what they were saying. I agreed with them, by the way. Like I do, and even the way that you've talked about how you've approached this challenge, or this competition, I think like some production stuff that you could bring to the table, both in like, just behind the scenes stuff, but also just creating content, whether it is in front of the camera or just like the idea of what the content is, right? Taking another creator and pointing them in a direction, being like, oh, this could be like, I could see you coming up with like the next version of what the randomizer is, right? That feels
Right.
like such a specific, unique show that Pete has come up with that I think is brilliant. And that seems like something you could have come up with. And I mean that very
No,
complimentary.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, Pete said that when so I came up with the idea during Survivor Week for how we were gonna approach that challenge for our Schemers video, so that was the auction style snake draft.
mhm.
Obviously pairing in the auction and Survivor, but also having a unique kinda angle to a best ball stream, and the second I pitched Pete on that, he was like, "That's brilliant, like,
Yep.
I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna steal that," and that's the kind of stuff where I feel like if you put me in a room for 24 hours, I could pump out like 5 or 6 of those ideas.
Yeah, I think it, and I thought that was very sharp of them all to kind of talk about it and call that out. What I was curious about though was how it was received, only because I know if I was competing for something and then they basically gave me a bunch of compliments, but it was not about the thing that I was trying to do in that moment, I would have been like, all right, thanks guys, yeah, thanks.
Well, yeah, you had Max on a couple weeks ago, right?
Mhm,
And I
yeah.
thought you asked him like what he thought about the remaining contenders and who he thought was going to win. And I actually did think he brought up a sharp comment with me when he was like, Commish is great, but this really isn't a contest for him. And I feel like I agree with that. When early on, I didn't know where the show was going to go. I don't think Pete knew where the show was going to go. But early on, if it had leaned more into more creating content and producing content, I think I could have won this contest.
I
The
agree.
second it leaned more into best ball and streaming and live reps, I knew I was drawing dead. All 5 of the final 5 just went on, with Pete today on best ball or on best ball breakfast.
Mhm.
I have no delusions that I would have done better than any of them at that. Like, that is not my forte at all. So,
Yeah.
in some ways, I'm appreciative that I got let off the hook before I had to put on that performance all week with 3 different streams. But yeah, so I think I wouldn't say I ran bad because I don't think anyone knew like where the show was going to go, but the direction that the show went away from my strength
Yeah.
from earlier on.
Yeah, and I think, and I even just clocking that as it was happening, and then still finding ways for you, like you pointed out, to kind of be a bit more unique. I think was just sharp strategy. All right, let's do some game theory stuff. Like, I guess I want to start here because, and I don't even have the full context of this, but Pete wanted me to say something, wanted
Ooh,
me to ask something, ask him about a move he told me he was considering making. Um,
yeah.
and if he would have, and if he would go at it now, having seen the episode.
Okay, so yeah, so I told Pete this. I do have receipts. I talked to Trev, shout out Trev in the chat. I talked to my dad about this. I was throwing around the possibility of giving up my spot for PPR before
Ooh,
this last episode because again, talking about relationships, talking about long-term EV, I thought I was probably drawing dead to win the competition at that point. So I was playing around with the idea of like, let's let PPR take my spot. PPR wins, like that obviously like builds my relationship with him moving forward into the future. I think he's a future star in the industry, as I would say with all the final 5, who I think I'm lucky enough to have a good relationship with all of them. But I think a lot of people were playing to win the contest. I was playing to extract the most value I could out of the contest, and not to say that for like me personally, but I think for all of us moving forward, like how I see us as like the next generation of
sure.
people coming up in this space. And I don't think the winner of this, I don't think this show, the impact of this show will be shown when there's a winner announced. But I think
No.
3 years from now, when we look back on this experience and all the people that came from it, we're really going to look back and be like, wow, that was super special. Like, look at all the talent we had in that one competition. So that was why I was playing around with. The reason I ultimately decided not to do it was because the contest was called The Interview. I think I'm a really good interviewer. I've had a
Mhm.
lot of experience interviewing, so I thought I stacked up pretty well. We'll get into some thoughts about how it ended up getting graded. I'm not sure interview was really, while it was called the interview, I'm not sure the interview really stood out as the grading parameters.
Yeah.
But if it had been, say this challenge stream week happened a week earlier, I think I would have really considered giving up my spot for PPR.
Interesting. I like that too. I want to go back to what you were saying about like this the competition. I think we'll know like a year from now the impact of it. And I like agree with that. This again a second Saturday Night Live reference, but it almost feels like a new class of like creators are coming through, which is really fun. I love that. I think that is the a cool aspect of all of this. I was saying it last night with Nathaniel. Like that is a nice. I think what I've really enjoyed, and you talked about the networking and the relationship building, is just kind of seeing you guys go on each other's shows when it has nothing to do with the challenge. And like, sure, part of it is for reps, and because you want to get more camera time before your next competition or whatever. But I still think there was something really cool about the way that you guys have all, again, are competing against one another. And I think it's probably only gotten personal a handful of times, maybe less than that. And even that might have been orchestrated a little bit behind the scenes, you know? But yeah, I think it's been really cool.
Yeah, completely agreed. I mean, that's been the best part of this contest for sure, has been developing those relationships. I've been saying that since day one. That was my thesis going in. I've stood by it. And to answer the second part of Pete's question, like the reason I ultimately didn't do it is I think I would have gotten a lot of personal pushback if I were to pull that lever. I think people would have called it a weak move and stuff like that, which is funny that I ended out going home because of PPR because of that anyways. And then the
Right.
decision was out of my control. So no blood on my hands, but it ended out playing that out that way anyways.
Yeah, it was. From the viewing perspective, it was kind of weird seeing PPR Tyler come back. And I'll say Nathaniel explained it to me a little bit better because I didn't understand why emo would do it, but I also would probably get voted off of Survivor pretty quickly. But
Oh, see, I thought it was a no-brainer that emo should do it.
right,
So
so the alliance building of it all, right? So is that
well, yeah, I mean, so Emo has what? If Emo doesn't pull that lever, he has a 1 in 4 chance. Let's say PPR winning is worth 70% of Emo winning, which I think is fair considering they're co-hosts on their main flagship show.
Mhm.
Then it's 1.7 out of 5, so 34. So you got 9 percentage points of winning there. And then if you take it a little further into the game theory where only one of them can make the finals, I think there's probably a 90%. Let's say that's the final three. 90% chance one of them makes the final three. Probably a 40 to 50% chance they win from there. So
Yeah.
then you're looking at like, yeah, 31, 32. So I think from a mathematical standpoint, it's a no brainer. And then also, Emo, I think he would have gotten some negative pushback if he didn't bring PPR back, which would have hurt him later in the contest. Where
Interesting.
Emo's whole narrative around him in this show has been moving from the black sheep to someone who can work with other people. And that's what he's been building the entire time, right? Even starting back to the Rick thing at the beginning. So
Mhm.
I think that move, if he didn't bring PPR back, would have undid all of his work to that point. So
Interesting.
to me, that's why I would have made that decision.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, maybe this is just me being a dick and bringing toxicity to the toxic tower. But like, what if I don't know? Is maybe he overvaluing PPR Tyler being a win for him, I guess is what I would say. Like I don't know how much that will actually help him if somebody else wins, even though they're like loosely connected. Because if that's the case, you guys are all fucking loosely connected now. So like I guess no matter who wins, everybody wins. So I'm like, listen, I would rather remove another person from this tournament, and now 1 in 4 is better than 1 in 5. But I get it. I get it, and it's cute if it comes down to the two of them, and we get Pete can run all of the old footage of them going back and forth. I'm sure it'd be really fun, but I was kind of surprised, but it does make sense. It does make sense. Do you have like a rooting interest here moving forward?
No, I like all five of them. I don't envy people that are making prediction markets right now because I think they all have a strong chance to win. I think this is probably as flat of odds that we've had in the contest.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I don't know. It's like a not a super profound or novel point to say they all bring something different to the table. I mean, I would say Cups is probably the favorite. I would say Emo and PPR probably after that, and then O'Hare and Squares, but I think all five of them are within a degree of separation from each other. So no rooting interest for me personally. I'm just excited to sit back like you guys and watch it play out.
Yeah, it was.
Hashtag member of production.
Yeah, that's right. I tuned in. I tuned in to a little bit of Pete stuff today and I tried to get like 10 minutes of everybody that jumped on. And I honestly, we are at the point where everybody's really good. Like
Oh, so
everybody's
good.
solid. Yeah.
So good. I mean, they could all just hop on and make their own show, and I don't think anyone would, if they stumbled onto their show, I don't think anyone would realize that some of them are so new to this.
Right, absolutely. Everybody felt pretty polished. I mean, that honestly, it's been the case. That it's been really impressive just how quickly everybody has felt so comfortable doing this stuff. Because I don't think it is easy, especially when you're first starting out. I don't think it is easy. There's a couple of questions in the chat, and then I got a couple more things too. We got Tom, just with that's fair, non-derogatory. Thank you for making sure we said non-derogatory. We've got okay, goes cards. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this kind of came up a little last night. And he says, do you feel it was predetermined that Squares was moving on regardless? Like, what is your thought
100%.
Yeah, so you think regardless of what happened between you, Nathaniel, and Squares there at the end, that Squares was moving forward?
Yeah, 100%. And let me say, I don't have like no hard feelings of being out of the contest because I think we're at a point where it shifted. And this is something that I wanted to bring up, was more meta talk about the show. But yeah. I think we've shifted from the challenges mattering to more who Pete thinks is going to be the best at this and the best partner for him going forward. I think, Pete's even said it himself. He's starting to put a thumb on the scale a little bit more. He told me like he's projecting forward a little bit more as far as like instead of determining each challenge in isolation. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know. I think if this challenge happened 2 weeks ago, Tony just goes home straight away. Before the PPR BBG decision, which I think was a Pandora's box moment, the last place person always went home. Yeah. And Squares was the worst by a lot, I think, even if you look at the judges' scores through the first two parts of the challenge, which, if we're playing a game, if you're down 3 touchdowns with 5 minutes left and then you hang in there for the last 5 minutes, you still lost the game by 2 touchdowns, right? So right. I'm not sure the third part of the challenge should have mattered as much as the much larger scope within the challenge. And so one thing I've been thinking about is like, it's interesting that body of work matters now, but body of work does not matter within the context of the challenge, right? So we're talking a lot about body of work as far as the overall show and what they've put on tape to that point. But that didn't seem to come into play within the challenge, where it's like within this challenge, the body of work was Tony was the worst by far going into the final 3. I thought going in that Tony would have had to blow Nathaniel or I out of the water. I think I put up a pretty decent performance in my interview. I thought all 3 of the guest judges that Pete picked were really hard not judges, but interviewees. I thought all 3 of them were really hard and for different reasons, right? Like Rambus is difficult to control. Gumby, you have to bring more out of him. He's more of like a dry personality. And then Crack Rock is Crack Rock, right? So we all had to overcome something. I just didn't think Tony did a great job of controlling Rambus. Like Rambus kind of overstepped on him and dominated the interview segment. So coming out of it, I thought it was between Nathaniel and I. When I heard that Tony was the one moving on, I was like, okay, well, the third challenge didn't matter, right? Like it was just more of a decision of Tony's going to be better than Nathaniel and I at streaming week. Tony would be better on this show as a winner moving forward. And I agree with that, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's the direction that the show's going, like I have no problems with that. So I think that would be my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's I appreciate that perspective because it does. I agree with you that the interviews all felt. I think Nathaniel might have had the toughest time, but I also think Nathaniel had the toughest like that was a tough setup for him. But I don't think anybody did marginally better or worse than the other, so that it shouldn't have moved the needle too much. But the body of work is an interesting thing because you're right. It was like specifically excluded early in the competition where it was like, I don't care what you did before, you have to do a good job at the thing we're asking you to do right now. And deeper into this competition, it's almost the opposite. And I mean, I guess if it's the opposite for everyone, you're playing by the same rules and it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not crying like unfair or anything like that, but it was a paradigm shift in the show. And, at that point, like yeah, Tony's done better at the challenges prior. Are we going to send him home on one bad challenge? Obviously, PPR gets brought back, which I think we can get into that. But PPR had one bad challenge. He and I don't know. So I think you're fighting against two kind of different things that diverge, which is we're running a reality show,
Right.
inherently has variance and it needs to have consequences. Versus we're trying to find the best person at this, and if we're saving the people or doing our best to save the people that we think or perceive are going to be the best at this, like those two are not, they don't really marry. So you need to pick a direction. And I think when Pete put out the video of like what I'm looking for going forward, that was kind of a signal to us as contestants, which I probably should have put more stock into that at the time. But that was, a signal like, hey, moving forward, the show is going to be different than what it's been to this point, which again, I'm not saying is fair or unfair. It just is what it is at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. I took that video to mean people were just misinterpreting what Pete was looking for, but you're right. That also could have just been a flag plant of something to point to in the future, to be like, hey, by the way, like this was a turning point for the competition. And you're right. Like it does have to be both entertaining for people to still watch this, but this is also going to be a year of work. And so Pete wants to make sure, like, not that there has to be a right person of the people that are left, but one of the better ones, like the one that he thinks he's going to collaborate the best with the rest of the way out.
Which, like, I don't think any of us had any delusions that was going to be what it was going to be at the very end. Like, Pete was going to pick his person. The question, I think, is just, is this too early to do it when we're moving to Final Five, when you have another round to do that? Like, do you let the people that perform best at this challenge move on to the final three or final five, and then you have two more rounds after that to kind of put your thumb on the scale? I'm not sure. Going back to Survivor, the best player does not always win Survivor. The best player rarely wins Survivor, right? So I think we've diverged a little bit from that. One thing I wanted to bring up, and this is like, obviously the show is being built as it goes. I did think it was funny that Pete titled that video "What I'm Looking For," and it's not a sub. And then the next challenge was us subbing for him on Basketball Breakfast, like quite literally subbing for him. I asked Pete about that. I was like, was that a rug pull on us? Like, but yeah.
That is pretty funny. Yeah, I like the too soon question's pretty interesting, only because like we've said, everybody, it's not like there's only one or two people that could do this at this point. Like everybody is pretty good. So putting your thumb on the scale for a specific person right now might feel it does feel a little soon, just because it's not like we're like, oh crap, whoever wins this is going to be bad. Like there are a lot of good people here. So also, if I'm Goofy Chicken, I'm probably like, hey man, I also was awesome and I had like a bad week.
I asked Emo about that last night. So I was on the Toxic Tower member only stream, and he was talking a lot about, oh, the decision didn't matter that it was PPR. I just wanted to bring back a strong competitor. And I was like, okay, would you have brought Goofy back? They went back the same round. They went out the same round. They're both, I would say, equally competitive in this competition. And he kind of stalled on that question, right?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, yeah, I would be a little annoyed if I was Goofy. I did think another thing is like, all right, and we can get into the PPR decision here. But if you are going to bring PPR back, a way that Pete, I think, should have done it to get some blood off of his hands is make PPR compete to get back in the show. So what you do is you have me, Tony, Nathaniel compete. Again, I think Tony was always moving on. So let's just put Tony on. And then you have PPR in the back room. And then you have PPR hop on with Nathaniel and I and do a second round challenge. And then, whoever wins that gets the final spot in the final five. So like giving PPR an opportunity to get back in the show versus just like handing him the last spot. Now, again, do I think PPR had a 100% chance against Nathaniel and I? Probably, right? So like it wouldn't have mattered, but it would have given like an illusion of choice right there, which I think would have been a smart lever to play.
Yeah, I also think too that this is and I mean whatever. I'm consuming the content. I'm excited that somebody got brought back because it's just a fucking crazy thing that happened. So I'm excited for that. But I do think like it happening earlier in the season might have been like a more fun move than so late, because now the stakes just feel a lot higher right now. And so that to all of a sudden bring back somebody that was like considered a favorite into the competition. Feels a little bit different when you do it with like 3 weeks left versus like 7 weeks left.
Yeah.
Like, when like Rambus and company were cut in that round,
Well,
like that might have been a time to do it.
yeah, and if we were going to do this, and I know like editing costs and time
Sure.
costs and the fact that Pete's getting tired of the show, but it would have been really fun if there was like a losers bracket where they had to all compete in a challenge. You bring back Rambus, you bring back Chad, Trev, Goofy, etc. Neil, Zach, and you just have them all compete in something like a second chance opportunity to get back on the show. That, and again, like, if you want PPR to come back, you can put your thumb on the scale to get PPR back. But at least then it's entertaining for us. And there's like, it seems that PPR earned his way back into the competition rather than production stepping in to get him back in. But I understand the constraints that they're operating under.
Yeah. And it's also easy to Monday morning quarterback it too, like after stuff is played out, to be like, oh, what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
I like the losers bracket idea is fun. Maybe they do like the losers bracket is so you think you can host, so you think you can tout,
Yeah.
or something like that. Let's get as many letters involved as possible. Anything specifically about the PPR Tyler return or the last episode, or that you wanted to get into before maybe some bigger picture things?
Yeah, I think like, yeah, I mean, my big thing on this is that it just completely took away any of the consequences of the BBG decision 1 week later, which I think kind of like undermines like the gravity of that situation, where that was such a cool moment for the show. And now I feel like it just means so much less, when in actuality, BBG probably did PPR a favor by just getting him an advance passed around. And are you a Marvel guy at all?
Casual. I'm a casual Marvel guy.
Yeah, so like one thing I always go back to with Marvel is that, after Infinity War, so the penultimate, movie of the original whole saga, they had Infinity War, half the characters die, and then in the finale and Endgame, they're like, all right, we're gonna bring back, the multiverse and time travel, and we're gonna go undo the decisions that we made. And I think that just completely ruined Marvel, because there's no stakes more for the audience. If the writers write themselves into a corner, okay, don't worry, we can just do something. We'll press a lever and bring back this, person that, Tony Stark. Yeah, he's coming back. So like, I don't know. To me, like that's an analogy for where we're at, where it's like, all right, now we kind of undid that decision, and now it doesn't have the same gravitas it had at the time.
Yeah, that's a great comp, in the sense that once you know that in your head, you're like, okay, so like, well, now there'll be the expectation, like, well, can the Commish come back? Like, the Commish just got eliminated. Why can't the Commish come back? Why are we only doing this for PPR Tyler and not the Commish?
I know way too much behind the scenes right now. So no, yeah, I think that was a one-time lever. And again, like, I think we've ended up with the right 5 people.
Yeah.
I'm humble enough to say that. Like, these 5 people are just all really, really amazing. And so I think no matter where Pete goes from here, I think he doesn't have to pull any more levers, because
I agree with you.
The competition is so stiff at this point. Everyone is going to be amazing, whoever wins the show at this point. So I think Pete ended out in the place he wanted to be. Whether it was the smoothest way of getting there, I don't know. Some other people can decide that, but I think we've ended out in a good place.
And I mean, honestly, this is what Pete wants, is people talking about the episode after it happens. And then there's going to be another episode, and we're not going to be talking about this specific thing anymore. So like, this is it's the goal for all of this stuff. But you're right. I do think they've gotten, I mean, I would have been fine if one other person made it and one didn't, but we were at the point where like whoever was moving on, super capable, super talented, and it was going to be fine. What are we doing now? Like, what's our plan now after like looking back on this experience now? So you've had like a couple of months of creating your own, like, what was the tout house? We did the tout house. We've gone on this entire journey. Like, how are we feeling post journey? What do we want to do with this? Like, what's our plan now?
Yeah, I was dreading this question, because I have we have something pretty big planned, but I can't divulge any details at this current moment. But I'll just say, yeah, just a universal
we.
A royal we. Yeah,
All right.
royal we. We have something pretty big planned, so obviously not going to step on So You Think You Can Tout. So I'm going to wait for July to play out, and then we'll we'll be launching something I think is super, super exciting moving forward.
Cool.
But yeah, I think taking this experience and really running with it would be the vision statement for what we're going to be building.
Was there anything from this experience where you were like, I wouldn't say, let's say something that you weren't aware of that like surprised you, either something that you felt like you did really well or that you struggled with on either side of it? Because I know you already mentioned you were like, oh, once this became about like the best ball or the streaming of it all, you were like, I know that's not my skill set. But was there something in there where you were like, oh, I actually did not expect this aspect of it to be as challenging as it was? Or the vice versa, or the
Yeah,
other side
no,
of it if you
no, it's a good question. I don't think I had as strong a fan sentiment as I would have presumed going into the contest.
Fan? Say fan sentiment?
Yeah, like comments and just getting
Yeah.
like the feel or the pulse of the nation. I feel like I had a very strong like fan base, right? So
Mhm.
like people that were in my corner were really in my corner. And that was some of the competitors in the show, and then some of the people at home that were tuning in. But for the most part, I would say I got a decent amount of negative sentiment, whether it's like stuff I can't control, like my voice or stuff like that. But yeah, that was something that was surprising me because I do feel like I'm really good at building relationships, and that's
Yeah.
something I've demonstrated with the show. But I'm not sure it translated as much to the viewing audience. And that was one thing that early on I knew I was in trouble when other people were getting more shine in the comments and stuff like that. I was like, all right, that's a negative. Like, how can I kind of improve that? So that was something I was working on and never really landed the plane on. I don't
Had
think
you
that's anything like indicative of the future, but just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, had you ever experienced anything like that of like this public facing type thing? Was this the first time you had seen anything like that before, or had you had experience with it?
So I used to have a Madden channel back in college, and I had like 4,000 subscribers at one point. So I was making a lot of content around that back in the day, and that was like I had a pretty sizable fan base at that point. But obviously, you're always going to get negative criticism, and
Right.
I think I'm really good at like dealing with that and not getting too high or too low based on even my own performance. Like if I did really well in a challenge one week or I didn't do as well, I think I was pretty good at taking it all in stride and understanding that, one challenge or one comment doesn't really say anything about you. And it's all about keeping a level head and remaining steady. So that's something that I thought was actually a really big early on in the contest. I thought that was a big differentiator where the people that were getting too high or too low based on feedback that they were getting all the way back to the Mayo episode, like
Hmm.
people that got a negative Mayo score and were crashing out on Twitter. To me, that would have been like an X right away. Like
Right.
you can't deal with this, right? Whereas I got a negative Mayo score and I thought it was funny. And I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, all right, that's just one more obstacle to overcome.
Right, right. Well, one thing as you were talking about this, I hadn't really considered it. I know I had talked about this with other people who have been eliminated, the idea of seeing negative feedback. But you kind of pointed to other people getting fanfare in the comments, and I hadn't really thought about that. Where I have definitely received, which is now a pride of honor. Like I love when people give me shit in the chat, like that. I love that. I like feed off of that energy.
Yeah.
But it is a different wrinkle to not only either receive some hate, but also simultaneously see somebody else get propped up a little bit, or to even not be mentioned at all in the chat. And that is a different wrinkle that I don't know if my brain would have been able to handle immediately. I'm sure after a couple of episodes you're like, okay, let's relax, like this is still Donkey Dong 38 in the chat, like I don't need to freak out too much about what this guy says. But that is a weirder wrinkle, I think, seeing like other people get propped while you're not receiving any.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting going back to the reality show standpoint, right? Whereas most reality shows, you're dealing with the comments after the fact as the episodes are
Right.
airing, versus in this show, because it's coming out weekly while the competition is still going on, you can kind of take the feedback. And I think so like going back to the last challenge, I thought a big trap that I could potentially fall into was I was getting a lot of sentiment like this guy doesn't know ball, this guy doesn't know ball. And Tony was getting the same criticism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a mistake Tony made was trying to prove that,
100%.
oh, I know ball. Like I'm going to show you. I'm going to study. for me, I went the complete other direction, and I was like, this is not my strength. Like, I'm not going to masquerade as some sort of analyst just to appease you people. If I can't win based on my own merit and who I really am and who I think I can be in the space, then it's not meant to be. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, where it's like, yeah, I was never going to be the analyst that I think a lot of people in this niche best ball audience are looking for. And so, like, maybe that's not my natural audience. And that's why I think ultimately I probably wouldn't have played as well on Pete's channel as a lot of other people.
Yeah, I agree if you're going in that if you're the content is going to be in that same direction as what he's doing. But I
Right.
also do think you are creative enough to have like created your own avenue or own vehicle that would have worked. I do believe that. Like
Yeah, if we had, again, going back to like the challenges, like if the challenges had skewed more towards, I kept waiting for the, like, Pete is going to be like, all right, this I need to see what you guys are bringing to the show. Like, pitch me on your show, make episode 1 of your show, like, let's see what it is. That's something where I think I could have gone first at, and
Yeah.
that's something I would have absolutely thrived at. The show just didn't really go that way, and for a lot of it's been, we're not looking for the next best ball streamer, and I still don't think that's the case. But the challenges lately have been best ball streaming.
Yeah. And I think it wasn't that way early in the competition, and now we're seeing part of it. But you're right. That is something that is like sprinkled in. And like to your point of that, if we saw a competition where you're like creating your own thing, I do think it's like ironically enough, I think you and Nathaniel also you both would have like excelled in that area. I think like your creativity would have been used pretty well there.
Which, like, yeah, which another thing when it came down to me, Nathaniel, and Tony, another reason why I thought it was going to be me or Nathaniel potentially moving on was because I thought I was trying to look at archetypes of players that are left, right? And I thought me and Nathaniel kind of played the same role in different ways. So I thought having one of us move on would have made a lot of sense, where we're the two, differentiators in the space, creative types. So having one of us move on, granted, the second I learned it was streaming week, I was like, yeah, cut me and Nathaniel out. We were not going to do well at this challenge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're right, though. I would have brought an extra element to it. I think having one of you guys still in there, because you're right. I think like whether it's Cups, O'Hara, Emo, now PPR, Tyler, and Tony Squares, all different. Obviously, all different. I didn't leave anybody out there, right? That was everybody. Yeah,
No,
all
you're a
different. Yeah, yeah, all different contestants, but kind of the similar thing,
Yeah.
And I think having a different pitch, if you will, would have been entertaining, and maybe not what Pete is looking for, but just again as the consumer, a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah.
I also, just to go back to you and Nathaniel both getting eliminated the same week, I also thought it was kind of interesting because I thought you guys did a very good job of scrapping through, where I don't think at any point you guys were considered like favorites. And yet you still, and I again don't mean this derogatorily, but I don't think you were like considered favorites, but still were able to like fight through week after week and outlasted a lot of people who might have been considered faves,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give a slight pushback to this,
Sure.
because yeah, I think that was a sentiment that I was kind of scrapping through, but I would say that was more about public perception
Sure.
than it was my actual results in a lot of the challenges. Like, I got first at the Tout Twist. Me and Goofy got third at the Duos week. Whether you want to say that was because of a 10 or not, still top 3. Survivor week was bad because the guest judge hated me. No love lost there. But I think behind the scenes, I was probably the standout of that for the Schemers Tribe, coming up with the idea, creating a lot of the creative designs and assets that we used, doing the packaging, all that stuff. And then I got third in the debate challenge, right? So like 3 out of 4 weeks, coming into this last challenge, I was top 3.
Yeah.
So like I thought I was always performing pretty strong. I was never in the bubble. I was never in a live vote situation, right? Like I was always top half. So, and my odds, the odds or whatever, like it never really reflected how I thought I was doing at the competition. But again, I think that has a lot to do with public sentiment and the fact that I wasn't getting the comments. I wasn't getting a lot of the vocal, I guess, stuff from the audience.
No, and that's honestly, that's exactly what I mean. Like, and I know that's different from Nathaniel, who had to like fight through the bubble a couple of times, but I thought it was impressive. I think this is in a lot of ways or a lot of ways can be a popularity contest. And I think it just speaks to how talented you are, that if that part was not in your favor, like publicly while the show is going on, for you to still be able to hang around as long as you did. It's like, I think it's really impressive. And now hopefully getting eliminated actually gets you to that popularity point, because everybody likes to root for the dude that just gets knocked out, right? They're like, oh, he was unfairly ousted. Why did we bring PPR back? You know, it's gonna be a lot of that.
Oh, if you don't think I'm gonna be playing that card, you know, come on, that's a layup right there. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, but yeah, overall, I thought it was fair. Like, that's why I'm probably not making good radio right now, because I know we're supposed to come on here and bitch about the show and bitch about like, oh, I shouldn't be out. But I thought, like, again, I thought I had a high floor.
Yeah.
If I always thought I was going to get top 10, I never thought I was going to win. So that went back to my PPR consideration, where I was like, I feel like I'm at the end of where my current abilities in this specific space have allowed me to reach. And as I'm hitting that ceiling, what are some of the things that I can do to get the most out of the show? Because I know I'm probably not winning.
I think that, man, it's such an interesting way that you've approached it. And I think that is unique, which I guess speaks to just your creativity, as we talked about it this entire time. But I don't know if anybody else would have said they submitted to see like basically for a networking opportunity and a relationship building. And I know that's not the only reason you did that, but it's really sharp to get to this point. I don't know if you've ever played poker or if you're in the poker streets at all, but it does remind me, it feels like you were like, all right, man, I'm probably not going to win this thing, but let's play really tight and see if we can ladder up a couple of pay scales here before we get knocked out. And I love that. I love that approach.
I was like, there were a couple confessionals in the middle there where I was like, yeah, I didn't get last. Like, that was my goal.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
trying to survive and advance each week. You know, especially when it got down to, you know, like the debate challenge or some of the things that I don't think are my natural strength, which is just being on camera and being on the mic. It was just like, let's hope next challenge is more my lane. Like, we're just going to keep kicking the can down the line and hopefully something aligns with my skill set. And, you know, that was kind of the goal. So, yeah, I think that's a great analogy. Like, playing tight, playing conservative.
Yeah, ladder up.
I think I learned, like, I went all in with the Goofy video and I got my hand slapped a little bit there.
Yeah.
So that was where I was like, all right, let's pull back and rein it in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the Goofy video is like, that's such an interesting case study too, because I feel like every people had just visceral reactions one way or the other. It was like, this is the best fucking thing ever. And then there were other people like, you didn't even do what he was supposed to do. But the swings, I think especially early in a competition like that, you take big swings, right? You're just trying to whittle down how many people are there. And then
and talking about like the game theory and the fan support, that was a moment where I was like, all right, Mitchell, like, coming out of this, you know, you got to do something here to push yourself to the forefront and build some momentum. And I thought I got a lot of fans from that video, right?
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it served me well at that moment in time. Whereas I think Goofy was a little bit more like, all right, let's play it straight here. And selfishly, I'm like, buddy, you're the one who got the 9.5. Of course you want to play it straight. I need to hit a home run on this video. Like,
hey, but listen, sometimes that's like the best. That's how like comedy duos work. You need to have the straight person and the crazy person. That's how you're gonna pair them up. So that it was a match made in heaven. Man, was there anything else? And if there's anybody in the chat too that has questions, feel free to fire them in as we wind down here. But was there anything from this competition as a whole that we didn't really discuss, whether about like your personal performance, about somebody else, about the theory of it all? Was there anything we didn't really hit?
I thought we did a good job of hitting things. I think for the show in general, you know, I have some thoughts on, like, you know, potential improvements. There's always going to be improvements in season one of a show. I always thought, like, I thought we should have been graded on our confessionals each week. So I thought, you know, 30% of our score should have been the strength of your confessionals, and then 70% would have been strength of the challenge. Because we are building a reality show here, right? Yeah. And every reality show is only as strong as the personalities, and you can talk straight to the camera in your confessionals. But in my opinion, if you're not rewarding the confessionals or taking those into consideration for the most point, like, people aren't really going to try hard at them, or they're not going to see the value in putting their all into them. Whereas if you were like this is half your score this week. I need fire confessionals. We would have had the craziest stuff. Like, I would have been going all out. I would have been like I go back to the O'Hara moment in his submission video where he's at the drive-through at McDonald's. Like, do you want to hear about competitorial ownership? Like, we would have had 500 of those moments. And I think that's how you kind of go viral or you build the show.
Yeah.
People are like, what crazy things are these guys going to do this week to keep them in the competition? Whereas if you're not like promoting that as part of the show, and it's more like, all right, how are we going to fill in the gaps between the challenges? I think that's a little bit of a miss, right? Like, if I think about Survivor, the challenges are cool, but really what you watch for is people bitching to the camera and people talking about their game theory to the camera. Like, that's what keeps us tuned in. Same with any reality show, right? So I think that's one thing from a meta standpoint, I think that could be improved upon.
I like that. That's a good note too. And I will say, and I gave him a little guff for it. One of Emo's confessionals, where I felt like he was starting to lose his mind, but it was also incredibly entertaining. And you're right. That is like why we tune into that stuff, is to see if they will, if someone will lose it after a challenge or before a challenge. That's a fun note, grading them. I like that. Because it does feel like for a lot of people, the confessionals were mostly downside. So there wasn't a lot of risk being put into them. They're like, this is how this went. This is what I.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to like some of the confessionals that didn't air from other contestants, but from my vantage point, it was just a lot of summarizing what just happened or predicting what was going to happen in the future. But there wasn't as much, and again, like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, if this, and maybe it's a miss for me for not going above and beyond in the confessionals, but I just didn't think that they mattered that much. But, I would have done stuff like put my phone up and record myself talking to PPR on camera, right? And like stuff like that, like interacting with the other touts and then having that be organic content going into the episode. So, and I think another thing is like early on in the contest when anything outside the challenges didn't matter, right? Like, that was kind of the framework that we were operating under. To me, like, personally, I was creating a lot of ancillary content for the show early on and trying to like help it grow. My whole thing was like, no, I don't care about winning a contest that no one cares about, right? So like, I'm going to try to promote the show as much as I can. But the second it was like, no, guys, the challenges are the only thing that matters. Body of work doesn't matter. What you do outside the challenge doesn't really matter. I was like, all right, well, like, I'm going to stop killing myself trying to produce more content around the show. So I think like that was something that shocked me from a production standpoint of like, oh, I actually think we should be really leaning into this and trying to promote people doing stuff around the show because it's only going to help the show.
And I forget
my thoughts.
I forget who it was that got eliminated early. Maybe was it Trev? Maybe
it was Trev. That was the inflection point. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Well, I did so much stuff outside of here. Why does like none of that matters? Like, why is none of that included?" Which like it is. It's like a good point. That's a good point.
But I think it does matter now, right?
Yeah,
so it matters a lot now.
Yeah, you just had to. Yeah,
we course corrected.
Yeah, Trev, if you just stayed in the contest longer, man, it would have panned out for you, bud. All right, man. Let's wrap it there, dude. I appreciate you spending the time and talking through the experience. It was really fun getting to know you through this show, but through the contest itself, and excited for the Royal We and the announcement that's coming down the pike. Where should I be sending people? Where should we plugging stuff? I'll share your Twitter, of course, in the show notes, but what else?
Twitter. Yeah, you can just send my Twitter. That's the important one.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the show notes. But dude, yeah, I really do appreciate you coming on. Hell of a run, man. Hope it was a good time. Hope you're not beating yourself up at all, and you've like come down from it.
Mike, you don't know this, but I already know I'm getting back on the show right now. So I hope my acting performance this last hour was good.
I'll be so pissed off if I have to do a second exit interview that's why the only reason I'm rooting for PPR Tyler is so I don't have to talk to him twice for
that. Has to be a 5-minute like episode. I was telling PPR, I was like, hey, that's gonna be great practice for your real elimination.
Yeah. I know that one part of me does hope he gets eliminated like right away now. Like, you could just think of come back for 1 week and 1 week only. All right, Commish, man, appreciate you coming on, dude. It's fun chatting. We'll be back I don't know when the next episode is going to drop, but I will definitely not be back until at least a week from today since I'm out of town. So
yeah, enjoy Vegas.
Yeah, we're out to Vegas, little NBA Summer League action. I'm sure it's 145 degrees in the desert right now, but we'll be inside. We'll be inside. But yeah, thanks for hanging. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We're out of here, guys.